And you can also donate via Western Union or MoneyGram. We get into it. Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant. I was thinking about it. Style wise, the matchup and everything. I was just watching Canelo throwing some eye feints, you know, popping the jab up high, but feinting down low as if he's going to the body. Even when he throws his left hook, he feints the left hook first to the body, then he comes up top to the head. You can see how uh, refined he is and just the way how he throws his shots and shit. And I was thinking about it. Canelo versus Caleb Plant. Canelo versus Caleb Plant. What is Canelo most like? Everybody always say Canelo looked like a bigger version of Floyd, right? And if you think about it, Canelo and Floyd, Canelo's about 5'9" with a 70 to 71 inch reach. That's like almost 5'8" with a 72-inch reach, right? Caleb Plant, he's like 6 feet tall, and he got like like a 74-inch reach or 70-inch reach, something like that. That's Andre Ward's dimensions for Caleb Plant, and Canelo has Floyd's dimensions. And the other thing that I find interesting is, like we say, Canelo fights like Floyd, and if you check out Caleb Plant, he got the extended guard, hand over the heart kind of stance with the guard. So he fight more like Andre Ward than he fight like Floyd, even though he do fight like Floyd too. They all use the shell and they, roll punches and stuff. So does Canelo. Canelo mix up the high guard with the shell, right? Like Floyd do. And I was just thinking about it. Y'all want to see what Andre Ward versus Floyd Mayweather might kind of look like? Caleb Plant versus Canelo can give you something like that. Now, Canelo, the more experienced fighter, and Floyd would have been the more experienced fighter if he was to face Andre Ward. And I'm just thinking about it, and I'm like, because Caleb Plant got the size. He's in the weight class Andre Ward first was in. And Canelo came up in lower weight from a lower weight, right? He came up from super welterweight. Floyd came up from super flyweight, but nonetheless, he came up from super welterweight. And so if y'all wanted to know what Andre Ward versus Floyd Mayweather would have looked like, now that I think about it, this the fight that might help you understand in terms of styles. Because Canelo got a lot of Floyd-like things, and Caleb got a lot of Andre Ward things. And I'm going to tell y'all, I'm going to put this out there right now. People talking about Canelo knocking out Caleb Plant. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen at all. That is not happening. All right? That's like telling me, oh, Floyd's going to knock out Andre Ward. It's not happening. All right? We're talking about two defensively sound fighters. Caleb Plant's a very, very good defensive fighter. And guess what? So is Canelo. So ain't nobody knocking out anybody in this fight. So anybody talking about Canelo going to knock out Caleb Plant, that's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening at all. I don't care if Canelo be using a ton of PEDs. He's not knocking out. It's just not knocking. It's not possible to just do that, just like that. The guy's defensively sound. He get hit with shots. Everybody get hit with shots, but he's defensively sound. So that's not happening. All right. So, and let's make it abundantly clear. Caleb Plant's not even going to get dropped in this fight, so that y'all be clear enough. And if you don't believe me, you'll see. It'll play out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. But to me, it's a 50-50 fight. Canelo has the experience on Caleb, and maybe he can use that to his advantage. But there's certain things in this fight that favor Caleb. And I'm not going to go through the specifics of all of them, but I can say this much. Where and when and how this fight takes place, when, where, and how this fight takes place in the ring determines how Caleb Plant will win it. Let me say it again. Where, when, and how this fight takes place. Where has to do with distance between two fighters. All right. When has to do with when is the time to engage and when is not the time to engage. And how has to do with the specifics or the mechanics of what is being thrown and what is being guarded, what is being protected, and the game plan, meaning in terms of styles and game plan, the execution of a particular game plan. What is the game? What is the end point? What is the game plan towards victory? Okay, so Caleb Plant having Andrew Ward in his corner is just absolute a Virgil Hunter too. That you're talking about centuries and centuries of experience and knowledge that Caleb Plant gets just by associating himself with Andre Ward. Because Andre Ward can tell Caleb Plant what you're going to have to look out for, what Canelo bring to the table that he noticed and analyzed. So Caleb Plant's going to get that firsthand knowledge. And then when he goes in the ring, he can be able to verify that bit of information. Now let me just make it abundantly clear. Canelo is like one of them tricky fighters. He's a very tricky fighter. All right? And all Canelo be doing day in, day out is gathering knowledge and growing as a fighter and learning more and more tools. He's equipping himself with more and more tools. So when we talk about experience, we're not just talking about in the ring, but we're also talking about what he do outside the ring. And we know he training straight through. Canelo be training all year round now. So, hold on a second. I clearly forgot. Oh, man, I clearly forgot. Clearly forgot I had water in the sink, filling up. Yeah. So there's all of those things which work as an advantage for Canelo. You understand what I'm saying? But we will see. We will see. Like I said, those three factors is going to determine how this fight kind of goes to its end. And we may have ebb and flows instead. Or we may have one guy dictating. We never know. But for me, it's a 50-50 fight going in. I see Caleb Plant has everything to be able to stay with Canelo and even get a victory over Canelo, right? He has everything. Every single piece of skill that you need to beat a Canelo, he has it. But so does Canelo. Canelo has all the skills to beat a Caleb Plant, right? And he got experience. So it's one of those things where, of course, if you're going to go in there and you're going to bet, you're going to probably favor Canelo 60-40 or 55-50 because it's a close fight we're looking at. And ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to game plan. Game plan. What kind of game plan they're going to have, and whether they stick to the game plan or they don't stick to the game plan. So we'll see what's really up. But I just thought I'd highlight that. I didn't notice that, Canelo versus Caleb Plant. It's kind of like a Andre Ward-like guy who idolizes and follows after Andre Ward, and a guy who idolizes and follows after Floyd Mayweather. I just noticed that that's the two styles of fighters that we're looking at. And all you got to do is watch the little clip where Canelo's feinting to the body and coming up to the top, whether it's a jab or a hook, when he's showing Ryan Garcia, those feints to the body come up top to the head. Brilliant stuff, and that's stuff that Floyd would do. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know who's going to win this fight. I'm just telling y'all. I just know this, that Canelo's not knocking out Caleb Plant. That ain't happening. And two, Caleb Plant ain't knocking out Canelo. That ain't happening. This fight's going to the distance. It's going to the scorecards. Now, whether Canelo dominates Caleb Plant, and is steps ahead of him, that's another story. Whether the Caleb Plant befuddles Canelo and Canelo just can't do what he usually do, and Caleb just outboxes him, that's a totally different story. I don't know if that will happen. It's possible. But for me, it's going to be a 50-50 fight. I favor nobody in this fight. I would favor slightly Canelo in this fight, like I said before, because of the experience. But it is very possible that Caleb Plant could pull the upset and get the W. So, this is a good fight. If you guys think this is a good ass fight, and I'm gonna tell y'all again, And who was it that said the same thing I've been saying all along? Yeah, Blue Boy, uh, Blue, uh, Blue, what's his name? Blue. Goddamn, his channel, Blue. You know what I'm talking about. He said the very same thing I said. Caleb Plant would beat David Benavidez, and I think anybody who know boxing would understand that. Don't watch it just the knockouts and the excitement that David Benavidez brings to the table. These fights are very exciting. Throw a lot of punches and all of that. Got a good jab and everything. And he's big and he's strong. But if I had to put my chips down, I'm not going with the offensive fighter. I'm going with the defensive fighter. Caleb Plant will beat David Benavidez if they was ever to fight, because Caleb Plant got that defense. David Benavidez is still a young fighter, very exciting, good knockout power and everything, but he ain't gonna be able to do the shit that he do to other fighters to Caleb Plant. It's not happening. Caleb Plant got defense, and that's what y'all have to understand. Billy Joe Saunders could have put up a better fight against Canelo, but Billy Joe Saunders don't have that kind of defense. He count on his southpaw stance, and he not well conditioned. So Billy Joe Saunders, you know what I'm saying, he didn't do very well against Canelo. But when you look at Caleb Plant, it's totally different. It's just a totally different beast. Caleb Plant's bigger than Canelo. Caleb Plant's been a super middleweight for a long time. Caleb Plant's a fighter who's got defense. None of them other guys I just talked about, whether it's David Benavidez, whether it's Billy Joe Saunders, whether it's whoever. And Billy Joe Saunders had decent defense, by the way. But Billy Joe Saunders or whoever, they not as consistent as Caleb Plant. They not super middleweights like Caleb Plant. They don't got the defense like Caleb Plant. So I'm just saying right now, off the top of my head, I put it down as a categorical statement. Canelo's not knocking out Caleb Plant. That's not happening. Okay? Caleb Plant's not sloppy. He don't do things by chance. He's got a good defense. So I see Caleb Plant going to the distance with Canelo. The question is, when we look at the scorecards, let's say Caleb Plant actually wins the fight in a close decision, or let's say Caleb Plant actually wins the fight by majority decision, let's say. Will the judges give Caleb Plant the fight? Because Canelo's going to go in the A side. Caleb Plant's going to go in the B side. Nobody say no. But will the judges, if Caleb Plant beats Canelo, will the judges give Caleb Plant the fight? That's the question we need to know. Or are we going to end up with a draw, or are we going to end up with something else? Right? So that's the question I want to know. If we're really fighting for undisputed, will Caleb Plant deservedly, if he wins the fight, get undisputed? From Canelo. And vice versa. Well, I ain't got to say vice versa, because we all know Canelo's the A side. Canelo calls the shots. If Canelo wins this fight, right, by not stoppage, but by decision, because this fight going to decision, Canelo will want to get a knockout. Why? Because that's a decisive way to win. He ain't got to deal with no judges, none of that shit. So if he could get a knockout, that would be great. It's not happening. He not even dropping Caleb Plant, right? That's not happening. Right? So this fight is going to go to decision, because the two guys are just too good defensively. They have to actually make mistakes defensively to have the fight prematurely stop, and it's not happening. Neither guy's going to do that, right? And then I look at Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is a very serious guy, like Andre Ward. Canelo's more outspoken, even though Caleb Plant be talking some smack to Canelo. Canelo's more the outspoken guy, even though Canelo speak mostly Spanish, so yeah, man, this is a good fight, man. It's a good fight. I'm gonna catch you guys later. I'm really excited for this fight. I hope it goes to fruition. I hope they have the fight. This is a part of history. On the line, it's undisputed. This is the best way to go undisputed. And by the way, let me just say this. Let me make this point. Canelo, he won the WBA title, beating Callum Smith, which was at the time the number one, according to Ring Magazine, the number one super middleweight in the world. All right, everybody was taunting up Callum Smith and all of that, and he made Callum Smith look like he was nobody. Okay, damn. He faced the next best super middleweight in the middleweight division, which was Billy Joe Saunders. Okay, I rated all these guys ahead of David Benavidez. Billy Joe Saunders had good defense. He had fought one or two good fighters, um, Andy Lee and Chrissy Bank Jr. And he came to the table, but Billy Joe Saunders didn't have no confidence. So he started the fight. He started it bad. Canelo was going to the body early in the fight, 4 rounds in. Billy Joe Saunders still ain't done shit. Canelo been just doing his thing. And then Billy Joe Saunders comes to life in the rounds 5 and 6. Does well in those 2 rounds. Starts really giving Canelo different looks. Jabbing low to high. You really got Canelo chasing him down. Canelo's throwing wild punches because Canelo don't understand what's happening. But by the end of round 6, Canelo gets back control as he starts to go back systematic, feinting and all of that stuff. And Billy Joe Saunders was countering him, all kinds of things. Billy Joe Saunders, of course, is getting gassed because he expended so much energy in rounds 5 and 6, while Canelo's still systematically working the body, breaking him down. So he slowed down in round 7, and then round 8, Canelo crashes him, breaks his eye orbital. He doesn't come out for round 9, right? So Canelo basically took care of Billy Joe Saunders because Billy Joe Saunders obviously didn't have the confidence to begin the right way. If he had begun the right way, the whole fight would have been totally different. That ain't gonna happen with Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is a different beast, and Caleb Plant understands what he needs to do. And by the way, Billy Joe Saunders very skilled, very talented. I'm sorry, very skilled, very God-gifted fighter, right? Quick twitch muscles, decent power, decent pop, good eye, and all of that. I thought he was a better fighter than Caleb Plant. Come to realize, one, he's not disciplined enough. Two, he's a fighter who is not as well conditioned, right? When we look at David Benavidez, I say the same thing. David Benavidez is not well conditioned, but he's not as disciplined as Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant will not go out there and lose his title on the scales. That will not happen with Caleb Plant. All right, a consummate professional. All right. So I never thought that David Benavidez would beat Caleb Plant. Everybody's been talking about David Benavidez would beat Caleb. I don't see it. And they talk about Canelo going up against David Benavidez, and that's easier work for Canelo. The harder work is Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is the toughest challenge right now in the super middleweight division for Canelo. There's nobody else tougher than him. And don't tell me about no power puncher. With the guy at the top rank, that Puerto Rican kid or whatever his name. He ain't gonna do shit to Canelo. He not doing nothing to Canelo. It's not about power. The kid's real versed. He understands defense and stuff, but he ain't ready for Canelo. You know who's ready for Canelo? Caleb Plant. That's the guy. That's the problem guy. And Canelo picked a doozy. And a lot of people thinking that Caleb Plant is gonna be difficult. It's gonna be easy work for Canelo. That's never gonna happen. That's like saying Canelo versus Demetrius Andrade is easy work. That's not. It's not easy work. Right? Canelo versus Charlo is easy work. It's easier work than Canelo versus Andrade. But no, it's not easy work. So Caleb Plant, like I said before, is going to be a problem, and he's going to show us why he's a problem. And the key to Caleb Plant getting his victory is working that game plan. They need to have a good game plan. They work that good game plan. They understand what Canelo brings to the table. They understand where he's most effective, what he does to make himself most effective, so you don't play his game, and then you do your game, you play your game, and we see where the chips may lie. So you keep Canelo honest, you keep him having to play his game, and and understand that he's not gonna make you hesitant, and you're not gonna second guess yourself, right? Because it's about being first. So if you be first, you get to dictate for a bit. So it's all of that, it's experience. Canelo has a lot of experience, so that's why this fight could be a whitewash. But we'll see how it goes. I don't think Canelo's going to stop Caleb Plant because Caleb Plant got defense. Just like how Canelo had defense against Floyd. Floyd couldn't stop Canelo. I think it's the same thing. Now, maybe Canelo teaches Caleb Plant a whole bunch of stuff. All right, so that's a possible outcome. The other way to look at it is Caleb Plant may frustrate Canelo and actually make him come out of his game plan because Caleb Plant is frustrating him so much that he just can't. He's falling short with certain shots, and he's not landing certain shots because Caleb Plant, is spinning out of the way of shots, check hooking him, and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So, like I said before, you have to understand that Caleb Plant has the skills to counter what Canelo brings to the table. The question is, will Canelo actually, when he sees that, be able to make adjustments to what Caleb Plant might be bringing to the table and see if he can get back the momentum in his favor or. So we'll see. I don't know. Caleb Plant got lots of skills, lots of abilities. And just because he's been facing inferior competition don't mean he can't step up to the plate for this competition right here. I think of Floyd versus Tony Pep, for example. He never stopped Tony Pep. He never got him out of there. Caleb Plant didn't get Caleb Plant out of there. Caleb Plant didn't get Caleb Truax out of there. But it's hard to get Caleb Truax out of there, to be honest with you. But even at the end of the day, he did beat his ass from round 1 to round 12, right? So we're going to see what could be done with Canelo. Canelo's like a bull, by the way. He tough, just look rough and rugged. He look like a fighter. Caleb Plant too looks like a fighter, but he's more, to me, more finesse looking. Can he out finesse Canelo? We'll see. I don't know, man. We're gonna see. But it's gonna be a good fight. And once, like I said before, when you're a defensive fighter, it's kind of hard to get guys to get their hands on you. You're slick. You have a certain degree of slickness. Canelo has a certain degree of slickness himself. So that's why I said this is going to be a very interesting fight, because it might be frustrating for Caleb too to land on Canelo. You know what I mean? It might be frustrating for him too. So we'll see how this fight turns out, because Canelo has that defense. I'm not worried about Canelo getting knocked out at any time in his career, because he got that defense, and that's the trick to the whole game, his defense. And those two guys are versed in defense, so I expect a very good fight. A very, very good fight. I'm going to catch you guys later on what you need. Peace.